What's up, my family? Listen, first-time listener, or you've been here the whole damn time. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, giddy up, let's go, enjoy the clip, no notes.
So, I just want to say that this is greatest running back in Eagles franchise history. That's where I want to steer this conversation. I addressed and I posed this question as it was presented. Not who is the better overall offensive weapon, not who had the better skill set, the better Eagles running back in franchise history. So I'm going to keep this one short because I'm very curious to see what Chucks is going to say. Because he may speak to the fact that McCoy wasn't a great punt returner, great kick returner. Well, by the time McCoy came around, we already had Deshaun Jackson and Jeremy Maclin to fulfill those roles. I can't sit here and say that Brian Westbrook didn't have the luxury of playing with better skill position players, but he did have the best single season wide receiver in history for the Eagles, who T.O. had 20 touchdowns in pretty much I think it was 17 or 18 games. So he did benefit from that. He had McNabb at his prime. When you look at the pure effect, okay.
All right, so when you define greatness, you're talking about a player's talent, but also their legacy. All in all, what they did for their team. That's greatness. Okay. And it's close between Westbrook and McCoy. It seriously is. And you can go either way. And, when it comes to McCoy, he is a Hall of Famer, or borderline Hall of Famer. He had a better overall career. And I'm not debating that because durability-wise, he had that edge on Westbrook. Therefore, he is a borderline Hall of Famer where Westbrook is not. He had injury concerns. But the conversation at hand is the best Eagles career. So we're talking about stint.
No, it's not. No, it's not. What is the question, Jeff? What is the question, Jeff? What is the question, Jeff?
Okay, he gets an extra 5 seconds because you interrupted. Go.
So the question is greatest running back in Eagles franchise history. So there's stints during their time in Philly. And when you match up everything, stats, talent, and legacy, Westbrook has that over McCoy. And so I will get into all those details as the debate goes on, but that's what we're looking at. And running back consists of everything, not just running the ball. That's a misconception.
All right, listen. You said overall career. Not even fucking close. Westbrook got replaced by McCoy. He only did it in 5 years. I'll give you the stats. Games played 90. McCoy. Westbrook 107. Attempts 1,461 to 1,308. Benefit of McCoy 6,792 yards compared to Westbrook's 5,995 yards. Yards per attempt 4.6 the same. Yards per game, McCoy 75.5, Westbrook 56. This is his rushing stats. Fumbles 14 to McCoy, Westbrook 12. Total touchdowns, rushing touchdowns 44 to Westbrook 37. If you want to look at the receiving yards, 2,282 for receiving for McCoy, 3,790 for Westbrook. That's where he gets the edge. But it's not that. It's not like it's a completely lopsided at all, because overall his catch percentage over 383 attempts and 300 receptions, McCoy had a better catch percentage at 78.3 compared to Westbrook's 74.1. So when you look at it,
well, hold on. So you're gonna throw stats out there, and I get it because McCoy is the leading rusher in franchise history
in 5 years,
and he's
5, not 7, 5. Less time, 17 less games.
Okay, and I get
season, less amount of games.
Hey, I get that. Yeah, he had less seasons, and he was the better athlete. He was, as a pure runner, he was probably better, and I've always admitted that. Mm-hmm. However, you also got to consider context. What do I always say when it comes to stats? Context matters. So you want to throw out that Westbrook had less around even yards, in terms of rushing ball, less rushing stats in more seasons. We also got to consider that durability, like I said, played a factor, and that goes against Westbrook. But then also, if you combine stats, yards from scrimmage, which is receiving and rushing, Westbrook still is the franchise leader in yards from scrimmage. You combine both, and Westbrook has that over McCoy. So you're putting all this context into all Westbrook's stats, considering also when he was playing in his stint, when he was, I'd say 03 to 08 was his stint, right? So that's 6 seasons where he was the guy. He was also the only guy except for 04 when T.O. was here. 05, T.O. wasn't here for half the time, and so I don't really count that as much. But other than that, who else is Westbrook playing with? The opposing defenses, game in and game out, focused on Westbrook all the time, and Westbrook always produced. McCoy had much better talent around him to help take the lighter boxes and help take the pressure off of him. So he wasn't always the main guy, the main focus of an opposing defense. So that's the stat wise. Now let's get into you had your rebuttal.
How much time does he have, Jeff?
I was about to cut him off. Hey, I'm watching the timer here. Don't worry, Pete. Don't worry.
Okay, that's fine, because I responded to yours, so I was going to make a point and then see if you wanted to.
Okay, that's how we want to do it. Let me rebuttal to his point.
Pete, if you want to still reply to that, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No. Go. All I'm saying, if you look at 2012, the Chip Kelly era, that's really where the skill positions set themselves apart. Westbrook always had McNabb at his prime during his stint. The quarterback position, the most important position on the field, was in flux when McCoy was in his prime in the 5 years that he did it. That's all I'm saying.
But he's still okay.
You keep saying the durability issue, that you can't knock McCoy for that. And this is the biggest thing. One star was still ascending when he left this area, and that was McCoy. Westbrook, the Eagles chose to move on from him because they had a better replacement.
They chose
this whole debate ain't shit if he's still here. If Chip Kelly never changed, if he never trades LeSean McCoy, this conversation ain't shit. This whole debate, there is no debate at that point.
Based on a better one, because Westbrook, like I said, I don't put that against McCoy. At the beginning of the debate, I said McCoy has always been more durable. Durability is the one knock against Westbrook, and I will always admit that. And because of that durability, McCoy is a Hall of Famer. He's a borderline Hall of Famer. So that's I never denied that. I say that, but again, we're talking about the stint in Philly. They didn't replace Westbrook with McCoy because McCoy was just the better talent when they were in the prime. You got to remember, Westbrook had several concussions. I think he had 2 that season in 2009 that knocked him out. He was turning, I believe, 29 or 30. That was it. His career was done. He went to San Fran in a bad team and barely did anything because he knew his career was pretty much done and retired the year after. You're talking about replacing a guy who had numerous injuries and was in a bad place mentally because of the concussions. That's why he replaced him. He didn't replace him because Westbrook was in his prime, but McCoy was better.
If I have the choice between LeSean McCoy at his peak or Brian Westbrook at his peak, I'm taking LeSean McCoy. Every day of the week, twice on Sunday. That's no knock to Brian Westbrook. And I don't think it's as close in talent as you believe, because it's just as what we can sit here and say Brian Westbrook in this league, what he would do as a fantasy stud. LeSean McCoy did that for years. We're talking 160, 170-yard rushing games. The next 2 or 3 seasons, up until 2018, he was still a top-tier running back in this league. And if you put LeSean McCoy, arguably, the best benefit that Westbrook had, he played with McNabb at his prime, in his peak. And would I be so wrong to say that maybe not in 2012, 2013, but for 2010, 2009, 2011, compared to what Brian Westbrook had and he was running behind those offensive lines back in those times, LeSean McCoy may even have more numbers running behind that offensive line that Brian Westbrook got to run behind.
McCoy had an elite offensive line too.
I'm not saying he did. So that's what I'm saying. So you're saying both. I feel as that because this is going to tie into the question of 2004, 2017. I'll sit here and say it right now. I think 2004 was a better overall team than 2017. That's just me. 2004 couldn't get it done. They didn't have the breaks go their way. But if you take that 53 versus 2017 53, all day 2004 is better. All day. So if you take a healthy peak LeSean McCoy, you put him on that 2014, does it change? Do we win a chip? We may. I'm not sure. But we have these iconic moments. Miracle in the Meadowlands #2. I get it. But listen, we talk about LeSean McCoy in the Lions game. We don't win that game without him in 2013. Those are memorable moments. Now, he hasn't done that in the playoffs, but he's just tried and true and consistent. That's my only point.
And I get it, and I'm going to respond to two different things you touched on. And like in all seriousness, I completely get and I respect where you're coming from. And this is the reason why it's so close, because you say you believe coaches would in their primes would take a peak McCoy over a peak Westbrook. Whatever I said a few weeks ago, it depends on how the coach wants to use them. I don't believe that statement. I don't believe your statement that you made, because I believe that creative coaches that want to use like Sean Payton, for example, with the Saints, I believe he would take Westbrook. I believe Andy Reid would take Westbrook. Guys who focus on using the running back in the passing game so much and need a smart and intelligent running back there to handle all those responsibilities would take a Westbrook over McCoy. Whereas run-heavy teams would take McCoy because McCoy is just so reliable as a runner. And to your point, you said McCoy never got that opportunity. That may be the case, but it also may not be. We don't really know. But McCoy was never used like that in college and was never used like that in NFL. We can't go into too many what ifs. We just can't. So I get what you're saying though, and I wish, trust me, if I could say that about McCoy, I would. I would have no problem admitting that about McCoy, but he just never was used that way and never showed that type of skill set. Now, you talk about McCoy being consistent and reliable for so long as a runner and everything, and you can't knock his durability, and I'm not, and I can't ignore Westbrook's inability to stay healthy, and again, I am not ignoring that, because that's the difference as to why Westbrook's career was short. However, I do refute the fact that you said Westbrook could never be the guy, because what happened in 2006 when McNabb went down? What happened in 2007 when they continued to give Westbrook the ball as the focal point of the offense, both running and receiving? In 2006, he carried that Eagles team that was down and was close to not making the playoffs. He carried that team that had Jeff Garcia as the quarterback to the playoffs, a division title to the playoffs, and won a game and almost beat the Saints in New Orleans. And he had great games in those games. In 2007, as the focal point of the offense, getting the ball repeatedly 25 times a game, 25 touches, he was the leader of the league in yards from scrimmage.